Could I have a roll call, please?
Megan Benson-Merle.
Here.
Michelle Jepson.
Here.
Kate McKinney. Here. Nathaniel Melton.
Present.
Deb Olson.
Here.
Marcia Schurz.
Here.
Paul Johnson.
Here.
Okay. I'll have everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Okay. We're going to move on to item D. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as written?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Alrighty. And we're moving on to number 2, the consent agenda. Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented at the COW meeting.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right. Now we're moving on to item number 3, the informational session, board reports. And we held the Committee of the Whole meeting on November 2nd. And we had a presentation by WSB. We had WSB member recognition. We had a referendum project update by Brad Kunkel from CISA 10. We had an update from the district nurse, Sarah Hamilton. We did review and certify the written evaluations of the school safety drills. We reviewed those and we placed on file. We have a consensus to move them to tonight's meeting. Discussed the appointment of the board delegate and alternate delegate to the virtual Wisconsin State Convention in January of 2021. Paul Johnson stated he would be interested in being the delegate, and Michelle Jepson stated she would be interested in being the alternate delegate. The board received and placed that on file. We had this 30, 60, 90 day planning, and we received and placed that on file as well. We had a financial update by Mrs. Grindell, and the board received and placed that on file as well. Approval of the vouchers, consensus to move that to the regular board meeting as part of the consent agenda. And we convened into closed session, and there was no action taken on the closed session item. All right, and I'm assuming everybody had a chance to review the other reports from the other admin. And if so, is there any questions? All right, we will receive and place that on file. All right, we're moving to item number 4 is community comments. And per Wisconsin statutes 19.83 parent 2 and 19.84 parent 2, the board will allow public comments. The community comments session will be limited to 45 minutes. The time for each individual will be divided by the number of people signed up for community comments. The community comments section of the meeting agenda provides members of the community with a chance to speak directly to the board. It is a valuable opportunity for community members to have questions, concerns, requests, and ideas heard directly by the school board and administration. Participants are asked to step up to the microphone so that everyone is able to hear when you speak. Providing your contact information on the community comments sign-up sheet helps the district allow them to follow up on your item.
There's none.
There is no community comments this evening. All right, then we're going to move on to item number 5, which is discussion and action. And item A is consider personnel recommendations. Dr. Aslan?
3 hiring recommendations before you this evening. Jade Getz, elementary special ed paraprofessional, replacing one of the resignations from earlier this fall. recommended by Mr. Ham. Jackson Hessel, high school assistant wrestling coach, replacing Dave Parrish, recommended by Mr. Lucius. Josh Fiesel, high school boys C-team basketball coach, replacing Chad Ackerson, recommended by Mr. Lucius.
Okay. May I have a motion to approve these hirings, please?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, welcome to the district, and for those of you who are already here and are taking on another role, we really appreciate that. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to item B, acceptance of donations.
So our pattern of just wonderful donations from the community continues. From an anonymous donor, donated to the Spooner High School athletic field, microphones, $166 value. From Barb Foote and Teresa Anderson to Spooner High School, 40 SHS face masks, a $320 value.
All right, can I have a motion to accept these donations, please?
I make a motion that we accept these donations.
And a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you very much for these incredible donations to the district. All right, we're moving on to item C, certify written evaluations of school safety drills as required by Wisconsin Act 143. And do I have a motion to certify written evaluations as presented at the Cal meeting?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. And we're moving on to item D, consider second reading of Neola Policy 167.3, public participation at meetings. I need a motion to approve the second reading of 167.3 with no changes as presented at the Cal meeting.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. All right, and then item E, consider second reading of Neola Policy Volume 29, Number 2 update. I need a motion to approve the second reading of Neola Policy updates with no changes as presented at the Cal meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Okay, we are moving on to item F, consider future rails reopening plan contingencies. Dr. Aslan?
Thank you. COVID-19 has had a significant impact on the Spooner Area School District students, their families, staff members, and our entire community. A growing body of research indicates that in-person learning provides a platform for students to experience academic growth and achievement that remote learning does not match. Anecdotally, the review of local data here in the SASD is in line with those research findings. Current research also indicates that students having in-person contact with classmates, teammates, teachers, and other adults in the school is important to social, emotional well-being. Anyone with a stake in the Spooner Area School District can be thankful for and proud of the Spooner Area School District staff for the many, many ways they have gone the extra mile to serve children and families since the school year began. The can-do attitude that's been on display across the district all school year is outstanding. As COVID-19 increases its reach across Washburn and Burnett counties, we've seen the pace and numbers of students and staff members being diagnosed with COVID or experiencing some level of exposure accelerating. We've seen resources in our county stretch beyond maximum capacity. Staff members and dedicated substitutes across our district have stepped up to provide coverage as staff ranks have thinned. The collaborative effort has been outstanding. However, piecing together a system of coverage in order to support students is only a temporary measure. It's not sustainable and does not support good teaching and learning over the long haul. For the past 6 months, the consistent message coming out of the SASD has been providing in-person learning experiences for students and remote learning options for families would be a focus for as long as possible. The COVID situation in the district has reached a point where the administration is recommending a change in the attendance level, as is called for in the Rails reopening plan. The board has received 4 contingencies from the administration for consideration tonight. These certainly don't represent any limit on the number of possible contingencies that exist. The recommendation is to make Thursday, November 19th and Friday, November 20th remote learning days in order to have students and staff outside of our buildings. Following this, the Thanksgiving break, resume in-person learning at level 3, which is the A and B cohorts of the Rails reopening plan. This to take place from November 30th through June 3rd. So the A-B cohorts has 50% of the students in the buildings on Monday and Tuesday, and the other 50 in the buildings on Thursday and Friday. When students aren't in the building, then they're engaged in remote learning. Having 50% of the students in building supports social distancing throughout the school district and throughout the day. Reduced number of people in the schools provides reduced instances of spreading COVID-19 in our schools. The recommendation comes with an effort to provide in-person learning opportunities while attempting to slow the spread of COVID-19. This as an alternative to continuing on as we have been while COVID cases and exposures continue to deplete the essential resources we have to the point of being forced to a level 4 attendance level where only remote option learnings exist. Level 3 does not impact those students who are already in the remote only learning format. They may continue along with their learning as they have been. Extracurricular offerings are able to continue as long as public health conditions will allow. Students get a measure of in-person interaction with their peers and teachers. Cohorts have already been developed and have been proofed and have been done with the significant feedback we received from the school perception survey, where parents indicated that it was essential that we keep children from the same household in the same cohort. A level 3 return allows for in-person experiences while increasing mitigation efforts to slow the spread of COVID-19, and that includes while on the bus as well as while in school.
Any discussion?
Can I
Claire?
ask?
Oh.
I'm glad you first.
Clarify the dates again. You said it's a little different than what you had initially.
Yes, based on the current situation, since the board agenda was published, we think that it's important that we try to not have people in the building the last part of this week. If approved, this would allow some face-to-face time with students and some opportunity for staff to prepare for a transition prior to everybody being out of the building for the Thanksgiving break. And I do want to note that the Thursday, the 19th, and Friday, the 20th, are not starting vacation early. Learning still continues, teaching still continues. It's in the remote-only format.
Could I ask a question? You talked about the remote learning. I know that we're also going through a stage where we can ask, more people are asking to get on the remote learning. How are we doing with the numbers? What are the people's decisions? Do we have more people asking for remote learning than we have available, and how many more are asking?
Yeah, actually we had fewer requests for remote only learning placement for second quarter than the 30 slots that we'd allocated, and it was fairly close. Somewhere right around 25 or 26 students.
The other thought was that I've had people asking me why, and I'm hoping the board would at least have this discussion, is we're one of the few districts that does not require masks in our building. Is that something that the board would like to at least address to try to get this under control so we don't have to go down to that next level?
I'd like to address that. So I just want to clarify, Governor Evers' order is in place everywhere in Wisconsin right now. It's not a case that we don't require masks.
Okay.
As we've indicated previously, what we've learned from our own district's attorney, as well as attorneys for the School Board Association, is we can require employees to wear masks at work. We can say, hey, the governor's orders enforced with students, and the highest level of disciplinary consequence that we're able to take with students is a dress code violation. So we're not in a position to expel students for not wearing a mask or to force them into another learning format or anything on that level. The highest level of disciplinary action school districts are able to take is a dress code violation. So it'd be no different than a student who comes in with a t-shirt that might have an objectionable picture on it or something like that.
So that's not a discussion that the board members want to have.
You're welcome to certainly have whatever discussion you want, and of course, the process for board policy is, the policies are the board's, and we know how to establish them. I am just trying to provide some clarification on how we've handled masks in the district and what.
I believe the way we handle it is different than other districts. I know other districts are actually telling students to go home. You either put your mask on or you go home. And I know that that's the way they're being handled. Just call around the other side districts. So they're doing a little bit more than what we're doing to try to get this under control.
Okay. Any further discussion?
And did you say through June 3rd, Dr. Aslan?
Yeah, if I did, I'd stand corrected. It'd be January 3rd, so that'd be the Sunday before school resumes after the holiday break. Yep, I stand corrected.
Okay.
I want to thank the staff for trying to fill in and make everything happen so we do have that in-person class time. I think it's very important for that in-person class time. I think we're headed into what we know is one of the hardest and most difficult seasons as far as mental health is concerned. I know Washburn County's mental health hotlines are off the charts. My concern is with the huge break during this time and with some of our families in our district, the burden that it puts on with not having school in person makes it very difficult for them. I think my hope is as long as we are able to staff each building, that we have in-person learning, give people the remote option if they wish. I think last I heard with Shell Lake was they're going to do a week after Thanksgiving and a week after Christmas. I don't know if that's still the same of what they're going through because everything's changing so fast. I think I would like to recommend if we were to take an extended break to do something potentially like that. But as much in person that we can do for our kids, I think is really important, as well as knowing that our district, that our schools is the safest place for a lot of our kids in our district. So between the mental health, between this being the safest place for a lot of our kids, if it's possible and we have the staff, my recommendation is that we do everything we can to have as many days in person learning as we can. Thanks.
Is there any other discussion?
It appears that having the staff is becoming more and more of a challenge. That we've seen that increase, and appears that that increase will continue, number of staff out, and to be able to continue to staff the buildings will be a greater challenge moving forward. We
I
also have
agree.
to-
I see that this isn't going away anytime soon. I think we're going to be dealing with this for a long time. I think we have yet to know the long-term effects, what this is going to have on our kids' education. I think it's very difficult. We're already behind, and we're in a difficult challenge. And I'm happy how we've pieced together. I know it's difficult. I know it's tough, but I know several kids. I'll just speak of my own son. The difference of him being in school when we were out of school. He'd be one of those prime examples of having that in person was life for him. And he's one of many people that I've talked to.
Dr. Aslan, would you clarify to us too where we're at in the buildings as far as staff? And I know we had talked about how many staff we could be down per building to go into that remote-only option. So could you speak to that too as well, please?
Sure, I'd be glad to, Mrs. Olson. So, what we had determined fairly early in the school year is that based on how many substitutes we had available, if we were down any more than 3 teachers in each of the buildings, then we would be unable to continue the level 2 4-day-a-week face-to-face. And I guess I'd ask you to call on Mr. Hopkins here and Mr. Schurz is here, and I think they'd speak better to the impact on the ground in their buildings.
Okay, am I able to call them up then and
Yes,
ask them?
yes.
Mr. Schurz, could you please step forward and give us an explanation as to your staff?
So let me know specifically what you want to know.
I'm not exactly sure. Basically, what I'm asking is, in your building, are you to that three-person staff member number without being able to have other staff cover those? And are you at that point where remote would be better for your building versus having the in-person?
Right now, it's day to day.
Okay.
So for the past several weeks, we've had to cover many classes with our own teachers in the building. Now, what that does is it takes away, obviously, their prep. They've done an outstanding job of stepping up to be able to do that. But again, when we talk about that third person goes out, we may not have someone to cover those classes. So where have we been? We've been a couple times now, 2 out. And that's just COVID related. That doesn't count personal days, other days. I mean, again, that's where we run into a lot of snags with that process. So we have been in that situation. And of course, as we talked about, we depend on our subs, who are, many of them, at a high-risk stage in the process, and they've stepped up, have been in that process. So, I have a dual concern there. One, obviously covering to make sure our students get what they need. 2, it just takes one of those. We lose one of those as being a high-risk individual. And I guess you can include a lot of my staff, too. So it's a tension that's created on a daily basis to try to figure out how do we get through this.
Okay.
So again, it's really day to day.
Day to day?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Hopke, could you please step forward?
Thank you for having me up here. I want to reiterate very much the same thing that Dennis was talking about in his building. So far, we've been operating with 2 2 certified staff members out. We had to cancel our early childhood classes for this week because of lack of coverage. We've also, not only certified staff, but classified staff. We have a number of pairs in our building. We've been functioning at a minimum of 3 short for the past 3-4 weeks. And that's all related to illnesses and whatnot. So that is taking a heavy toll on staff, and I would say, yes, it's day to day, and I'm not sure how we can sustain this type of staffing for a long duration.
Okay, so are those missing excluded by COVID-related or contact or direct contact?
It's been direct contact or positive cases.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ham, would you please come forward and explain the special ed part of it, please?
From a special ed perspective, we're at full capacity at the high school last week for the very first time in the middle of the week since the beginning of the school year. It's been really difficult to put things together. We've been down both teachers and paras. We've done things like paraprofessionals working from home virtually, supporting kids virtually, and trying to meet their IEP needs that way. At the middle school, currently, we're down 1 para, but that's day to day. We've had more than that we were down at times. And at the elementary, as Mr. Hopke said, we were down a teacher that had to cancel the program because we couldn't find a sub. Also, one of the paras in that classroom was out, and we are down anywhere between 3 and 5 for the last, I would say, at least 2 weeks, probably 2 to 4 weeks. We've been down 3 to 5 paraprofessionals. And it's very difficult because a lot of those are one-on-one with students with behavior needs, and it's been very difficult to cover those, particularly at the elementary right now. I would also say that if we did move to a level 3, a lot of our special ed students, through IEP team meetings and contingency plans, have been put into their IEPs that they would continue to attend 4 days per week. We'd still have a limited number of kids. Those are kids that need the services the most and have a more difficult time when they come back. So a lot of those kids would be able to continue to attend 4 days per week.
Okay, okay. And Mrs. Kuski, if you don't mind, could you step forward and kind of explain cohort on the busing end of it so that everybody is aware how that would work? Thank you.
You're welcome. We too have been operating short. We have the mechanics driving, Gary's driving a route. We don't have any substitutes. And at one point we had 5 out. Okay. And it's just, we had 1 positive, but the rest were all just in contact. Okay. We can cover our routes, that's no problem, but now we're starting sports and other activities, which makes it shorter for us. We're going to have to double up, or we're going to have to move something back. We can certainly do whatever you decide to do. We can cover it, we can make that work.
Okay, so in those, if we went to a cohort situation on a bus route per se, can you explain to us, again, I know we went through this at the Rails reopening meeting, but can you discuss and let us know what we're looking at for seating wise and how that would look on a typical route?
Right now, everyone has an assigned seat on the bus. We seat them by families and we space them as much as we can. We take attendance every day. And we have hand sanitizers on the bus. Everybody's required to wear a mask on the bus. And we fog them between routes and after all the use. So,
okay.
We would have plenty of space. We can, if we go to the level 3, we'd have even more spacing. So
okay,
we can make it work.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions? Do you have any questions for Mr. Schurz or Mr. Ham or Mr. Hockey?
No, I just have
No, she is out sick. Yeah.
I just have a general question.
Okay. If you could, so we can hear you.
Just one question. So if we go to this cohort, how are we going to make sure that the kids who are out, who are already behind, or either have incompletes or Fs already in the first quarter that aren't completed, how they're not going to continue that? That is a huge thing for some parents. And what are they going to do? Because they're not getting their kids to do it, because they can't do it alone. And they're not ones who have IEPs. They're not ones who need the help. They're ones that just can't do remote learning. So they are there with incompletes and Fs. And I understand that middle school and elementary school probably isn't as hard, but when you're in the high school level, you get 4 years to do this.
Yeah, absolutely the case. Some students just are not thriving in the remote environment, and that's a concern, having even more time away. Perhaps Mr. Schurz is able to jump in and provide some information. What I would say is, what the cohorts do is provide a couple days to get students as prepared as possible, making sure that they have the material, that they understand the work that they need to do, and providing something that's called a flipped classroom experience, where while students are out, they are doing some studying in anticipation of returning to school when their cohort's back in the building. So that's a piece of it. I don't think there's any guarantees that every student's gonna have success under this, because we know even at 4 days a week, and back when we had school 5 days a week before the COVID hit, unfortunately, some students just don't thrive in the school environment. And in that case, we're trying to differentiate instruction, where we're bearing down on the individual needs of those students, and provide the resources that we can to help them, to set them up to be as successful as possible. And
So one of the things I mentioned this fall, and I will be straight up with you, COVID has not helped our high school students. Prior to COVID, we were making some substantial gains, which with a lot of effort created an excellent environment. And I do not have an answer for COVID. What I said in the fall was, for the high school level, it's important that I see them at least once a week for accountability, if that were the worst case scenario I had, so that I can, and our teachers can face to face have contact and say, hey, this is what we need to do. Now, I can't guarantee any of that is going to have the effect it did before. But on the other hand, I can also not afford not to have my teaching staff and the ability to be able to teach students when they're here. So it's really it's a tough call period. I mean, we'd all like to be in school 5 days a week and have a normal situation again. And I hope someday that happens. Until then, in my mind, it's a balance. I have to, and I think we all have to, make sure that we're also trying to keep our staff safe and healthy, because it's wearing on them. Mm-hmm. The stress of what's going on is having an effect on the educational process across our country. So what you're tagged to do is figure out what's the best of the worst possibilities, because the best possibility is back to level 1, doing what we do. That's what I signed up for originally.
I think that's what we all signed up for.
And now that's changed. And one of the things we're trying to do is we know, keep kids at the high school active as well. So we want to keep I want to keep them involved in sports, because the bottom line is that's what draws a lot of them into the building in the first place. So again, we have to be careful in our decision process that we stay ahead of the curve as much as possible, so that we aren't shutting down everything. Mm-hmm. That's what happened in March. That was a mess. And I'm going to tell you, a lot of those students regressed to the point I still haven't gotten them back. Because, why do I have to go to school? So we're fighting this battle. What we're asking you is to make the best decision we can for all students and staff involved, because we need it. There's no doubt, research says the way students are successful is a classroom teacher.
Mm-hmm. Face-to-face instruction.
So if I have to, I'd rather have some than none. And that's but that opens another can of worms. So I mean.
Yep.
So some of those students who may need extra help though, so if someone is failing, say, and they took incompletes and Fs last semester, last quarter. If they needed more than the 2 days that they would get, is there an option
Is there a way
there?
is there a way to do that?
Yep, so
Just,
I should have given you some more details. I used the term differentiated instruction, so that is really taking a focus on individual learners. That number of students, it's important, but it's not a huge number. And as Mr. Ham described, with some students that are on receiving support under an individualized education plan, an example would be maybe those students that aren't successful have to come in their off cohort time to do something. So that's just an example of an intervention that could be provided.
Okay.
And we've done that on Wednesdays with regular ed
Yes,
students too.
yep.
And again, as long as you're saying it's okay, and my boss says it's okay to have kids in the building that fall into that category, absolutely. I mean, we definitely want to do that. What I want you to think about is our biggest issue at the high school. I have 400 people in the building. It's the social distancing part. We're not getting it. I mean, we're not even close. And that's the tough part. If I can keep kids apart, and as we go through the levels, then, you know, that'll certainly be a big part of our focus. Hey, this is how we're going to set up a classroom, because we got 8, 9 kids in it instead of, 25 or whatever. Okay. So again, the good news is I think we're way ahead of where we were in March in knowledge, in setup, in things we can do. Now we know a little bit more about COVID. Before we had to shut down because we had no idea how it was really transferring. Okay. Now we have a better idea of the things we can do. So I think, again, you got more than you asked for. But
no,
that's okay.
I needed all that, thank you.
okay.
And since you did bring up the sports part of it, considering they're still considered a full-time student, so the sports part, they would be allowed to do that and, okay.
Correct.
Well, any other questions for Mr. Schurz? Anyone? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so I think we'll just recap here.
I do have one quick
Oh.
question. So like the
Go ahead.
Wednesday programs that they offer for like the middle school that has those kids that are at the Civic Center on Wednesdays, is that still an option? Or is that?
Mrs. Marindell.
Yep, that would continue
Okay,
as the
perfect.
option. That would follow whatever, if we went to a level 4, there is a virtual option that
Yep.
we are ready to implement if
Okay.
need be.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I ask, is there, other than the benchmarks for our staff, is there any type of benchmark where we have so many students gone that we hit a number and say we now need to go to level 4? So I guess the question is going to the future.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask Sarah Hamilton, the district nurse, to provide some assistance, but the county does have a threshold where they contact the, school leadership and say, hey, you got 10% of a given class out, or 10% of a given grade, and it may be time for you to consider something
Do
different.
you know what that number is? Or
It's Sarah Hamilton. She knew.
Sarah, could you please, thank you.
And we might want to call Sherry on this one at some point. When we deal with pandemic flu, which we look at our pandemic flu plan every year in case we have a pandemic flu year, 10% is the number where I contact the health department and I say, hey, we've got 10% out. And then this year, whenever we've hit that 10% number, I've notified usually Dave and Sherry and that district, the building administrator. We've been over 10% multiple times for our grade level, just when we've had to quarantine kids. There's not a threshold for COVID that says at this percent your school has to shut down or do this. The state of Wisconsin has not put anything forward like that. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
And with that, then we look at those mitigation measures, and I'll give you a case in point. I know in Mr. Hopke's building, a class had hit that 10% threshold. We conferenced with county health officials, Sarah Hamilton, Pete Hopke and I, It was on a Tuesday afternoon. We said, let's evaluate after the remote learning Wednesday. And in that case, students were sick, but it wasn't COVID things, and they were able to take that day to rest and return to school, and then that number came down. So those mitigation measures are just important, one of them being the remote Wednesdays.
Okay. Any other questions for Mrs. Hamilton? Okay. Oh, yeah. We're going to put a microphone up to you here so we can hear. So go ahead.
Okay. I've had a little trouble hearing everybody, but I'm just kind of debating whether or not level 3, having kids in the cohort, are going to do everything that we're kind of hoping that it would do. You know, I'm thinking about when the kids aren't in school, where are they going to be? They'll either be at home or friend's house or grandparents' house, and you know they're in and out of the school, then they're in and out of either home or friends or grandparents' house. But I don't know if we're really going to be doing the community much service and helping slow the spread, and that we still have some days in school and some days out of the building, and you know, there's going to be a lot of mixes still of kids in the school and in other places, wherever that is, home or daycare or wherever. I'm thinking about the teachers' mental health too. We've asked them to juggle remote learners and in-school learners, basically July, preparing for this school year, and thinking of their mental health too. I know that's just going to be a lot more juggling to them. And I don't know, I guess I just feel a little like everybody might need a big reset. And we saw that at the middle school, when we took those few days to shut down, our numbers eased up a little bit after that, but now we're back in the thick of it. I'm just feeling a little more led towards looking at a contingency 1 or 2, where, you know, if this week we need to have the 19th and the 20th off, and students are home and teachers are preparing for virtual learning because this week is a mess, but then having kind of a built-in post-Thanksgiving break quarantine before we all come back might help slow the spread not only in our district, in the buildings, but in the community as well. I don't know, there's no easy answer to this, and any way you go, it's tough. You know, but thinking of the staff and the kids' mental health, staff could probably focus on either all in the building or all out virtual learners. And I agree with Nathaniel that kids need to be in the building if they can be safely, but maybe we need to take a virtual week or 2 after Thanksgiving and reset. I don't know,
Okay.
just 2 thoughts.
Okay. Thank you very much for that.
I'd like to just add to what Kate said.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, you know, instead of going to the plan, just taking the next 14 days with that 19th. If you went from the 19th and didn't come back to school until December 2nd, that's 14 days. That gives staff whatever you want to put in there for breaks, or you get them through 2 days of learning or whatever. That's 14 days. See how we do, see how the numbers are. Come back and see how we do before Christmas. At least we're keeping people, because I can tell you a lot of kids in this community are going to be with other kids regardless of what we do. You're just not going to stop. I don't think you're going to stop after what happened in the spring, unfortunately. And it is no easy answer, but I think that gives some of the staff a 14-day break, or where people can reset and get healthy. And because it's not just teachers, it's our whole community. It's everybody who goes to work is dealing with this. Everybody's stressed. So it's the parents and people trying to figure this stuff out. It's teachers, it's kids, it's people trying to make it in our community. It's in our nation. So I'm just wondering if that's a possibility to try that instead of just going to whatever contingency.
Okay, are you?
I'll make that as a
Okay.
motion if that's okay.
Okay, then could you please put that out as a motion, please?
Okay. I make a motion. Now, I don't know all the ins and outs of how that works for learning days and all that, but I'm making a motion that we take from November 19th to December 2nd, if that's 14 days, a break in there. Bear with me.
Kevin, do you have access to?
So November 19th, if that's what you said, would be a Thursday. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Come back
14th would be coming back on the 3rd would be
2 days that week only.
the, and if that's a big deal and you advise not to, then skip the 2 days.
Days and come back at the 7th.
I mean, I'm okay with that, because that would be a whirlwind. So I could re-amend the motion
Virtual
to
learning for 1 week.
November 19th through coming back to school on December 7th.
So
And that would be our first,
does that include 1 week of virtual learning then, that whole week? Is that
I
what you
leave
mean?
the what is best for
Okay.
education. I don't know how that works for days and what would, but I just saying for a break for teachers, whether that is a whole extended vacation and then we do some virtual learning, I don't know how you're gonna get that all going together once kids go on vacation.
If there's a second.
Okay,
See if there's a second.
is there a second to that motion?
I will second it to discuss.
Okay, and on to
Yep,
discussion.
so yeah, you're on.
Can we make sure that everybody is currently aware of the motion on the floor? I'm sorry. That we would have remote learning on the 19th and 20th of this week. We would have our normal break and then remote learning till through December 3rd. Is that correct?
December 4th.
No,
December 4th.
they come back on the 7th of December because it was just a 2-day show.
Oh, okay.
But it would still be remote learning
For 1 week.
for 1 week.
Right,
Sure.
right, okay.
So
Would the
Thanks.
Staff be prepared to go into full remote learning on the 19th through the 20th, or do they need that as a work day? Kids are off the 19th, 20th.
I believe that is considered a remote learning day, correct?
Those would be
Remote
yeah.
learning starting that Monday after Thanksgiving break.
So I would say our staff are, now 12 weeks experienced with finding that balance between remote learning and preparing for future learning and things of that nature. So it'll be a rush, but they certainly would rise to the occasion, do the best they can in that situation.
Okay,
Can I ask, are we returning at level 3 then? Are we going to return again at level 2?
we would return at the level we are at right now, which is level 2,
And then can I?
correct? Is that what you're asking?
That's what I'm proposing.
Okay, that was the motion, okay. And reevaluate.
That's what I was going to ask.
So the 19th and 20th would be a virtual learning day. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
yep,
One more question.
okay.
So then we would come back the 7th if it passes. So but that's also our night that we would have our cow meeting, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So we
Yes.
wouldn't even have a week in. Is there any way to change our cow meeting by a week? I mean, or have a special one to see what it looks like then, which would help?
The 14th and the 21st?
I don't know. I'm asking.
So you've approved your meeting dates. If you want to call a
Yes.
special meeting, you're certainly able to do that as a board. Or, if you want to establish some criteria that you'd want to see sometime during that week. It's hard to know. It's really hard to know if you haven't been here.
Yeah, I really don't want to change the cow meeting date, but if we think that at some point after the cow meeting that we need to call a special meeting to go over some additional numbers and things, we certainly can do that.
And
We would only have, we would have 2 weeks in by our next meeting anyway. that would give us some information.
I think the other piece is, Sarah Hamilton continuing to work closely with the county. Certainly the county continuing to do their work to monitor the public health situation. So I don't think we'd be, without information. It would just be what's happened in school.
Yep.
Mrs. Hamilton, will you come back up to the microphone, please?
You'll still get your numbers for your CAL meeting, because I'll still know which students can't be back to school, and so I still find out like when students are positive and when they're quarantined. So we would still have a feel for what the community impact
Looks
is.
like.
We just wouldn't have hopefully quarantined any students from school, because they wouldn't have been in school.
They would be in school.
That would be good. That would be good.
That would be good. And we would have 2 weeks then, when we actually have our actual board meeting, that we would see what happens in those 2 weeks.
Exactly. So, okay, so is there any further discussion?
I have one quick thought.
Okay,
I know our teachers can rise to the occasion and they're going to do this seamlessly as much as possible, but I feel like the 19th and the 20th, or at least the 20th, should be given as a work day. There's going to be mounds of papers to copy and things to prepare, and if we're really looking at giving our teachers a little bit of a break, we're going to need a little bit of time to get a few things ready. Virtual learning is just, now we're on the computer. There's still tons of things that we're copying and getting prepared for kids that I almost say tack on a day or two. Vacation time for the kids and work time for the teachers.
I don't think Kate heard what
okay.
Dr. Oslin's first recommendation was to be off those 2 days as virtual, though. Did you, Kate?
I couldn't understand what the exact proposal was there. If it was kids were learning those days or teachers were preparing for.
No. So Dr. Oslin's first recommendation from administration was to have those 2 days as virtual learning. So students were out of the building, but the students had to virtual learn.
And Kate, are you talking about asking that one of those days be actually a vacation day versus a remote learning day? Is that what you're saying?
I think so for the kids. I think the kids could be out of the building and have that day off. Teachers are in the building. We give them that day to get stuff ready, because there's going to be a ton of stuff that they technically would have to have ready and sent home with kids tomorrow. Because tomorrow they have to have things ready tomorrow. Because Wednesday is a virtual learning day. Anyway, Wednesday. Then Thursday, Friday, the kids would be virtually learning at home. Teachers would have to have stuff ready tomorrow to send home, and I don't think that.
Are they ready?
Okay.
So she's asking, are they ready?
We need kids on the 19th, 20th. I'm just gonna say it, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say
Okay.
it. Yes.
All right.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
we need kids in school on the 19th and 20th to give them the materials to get ready for it. We are ready to do virtual learning for 2 weeks, for the 1 week.
Okay. Mrs. Smith, thank you. I understand your passion, but this is a board discussion meeting.
So you have a motion and a second.
I do have a motion and a second on the floor.
If Mr. Melton wants to amend his motion, he certainly can do
make it
that.
Friday.
And then Mrs. Jepson would be able to amend
Re-second.
her
Okay.
second.
So, Mr. Melton, if you are so inclined to amend.
I'll amend it
Okay.
to as what was said.
Get on a day.
I know. I'm trying to remember
So do I,
all the different
Caitlin, so do
amendments
I.
here, so.
Okay, so, all right.
Can we just ask Mr. Melton, are you willing to withdraw your motion and just start all over?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Please withdraw your previous
I
motion.
withdraw my previous motion.
Okay.
I can make a motion.
Thank you.
Okay. I will make a motion that we do virtual learning Thursday. Give the teacher, virtual learning on, have the kids be out Wednesday and Thursday, back Friday to get their stuff from their teachers, because that allows the teachers the stuff to give them. Then they're out of school for the next 2 weeks. The last week is virtual learning. They come back on the 7th.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Any further discussion?
So,
Oh.
so that one works. If you're gonna give a vacation day, you have to change your school calendar.
Okay, so you can't
And
give a
that's
vacation
not the item that's on your
Right.
agenda tonight.
So, okay.
So that will
Mrs.
not work.
Jepson's motion
I can't do that, I'm
works.
sorry.
It,
Oh,
it works, yes,
works?
it works.
It
yes.
works?
Yep.
Okay,
That'll work.
okay. Yay.
Oh, you
Okay.
second.
What I understood the motion to say is that Wednesday and Thursday are remote learning days.
Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
Friday's an in-person learning
Yes.
day.
Yes. It gives the teachers the stuff to give them their stuff on Friday.
Okay, all right. I have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion?
I just want to keep in mind the points about the physical distancing with the cohorts coming back full level, with students all back in school. We may not be able to continue that way. There's something to think
And,
about.
yep, and I think everybody is fully aware that this is an ever-changing situation and condition. And we also know statistically that, in-person learning is the best for the kids. So I think we're gonna leave the motion on the floor. We are certainly gonna consider the fact that, we should revisit this again. Once they come back, one moment, please. Once they come back from break, and then we will see how this all transpires. So, Mrs. Jepson?
Can I put in the motion, even though I made it and it was seconded, can I put in the motion to have it on our agenda for the 21st to look at?
The 21st of December?
Correct, which is 2
Well,
weeks after.
we can just include that
We can
on
just
it. You don't
include
have
that. You don't have to make them,
Okay.
we don't have to amend your
Thank you.
motion for that.
Sorry.
Yes. Okay.
Just making sure.
So if we have no further, Mr. Ham, do you?
Okay or not?
Sure.
I don't want to send things in another direction. There's just one thing that I didn't hear talked about, and I just thought I'd put it out there.
Okay.
Doesn't affect me. I'm not one of those parents anymore. My kids are much older. But we are going to have a community full of people that have 2 days to find daycare if we go out Thursday and Friday. So,
Well, they're
They're back in person on Friday.
Friday.
students will be this Friday back in school?
Yes.
Yeah, they have one day to collect the.
Yep.
Yep.
One
Yep.
day to
Wednesday,
collect.
remote learning day as planned.
Scheduled.
Thursday also a remote learning day, so that will put some
Yep.
challenge
Some
on
challenges
families.
on some families.
And, of course, we will communicate whatever is approved here tomorrow to families so that they have some time to prepare not just for this week, but for the time after the break as well.
Yeah, the 1 week after.
Yeah.
And I think staff will appreciate, very much what you're doing. I just have concerns because I think there's both staff members and community members that are going to be in a bind on Thursday.
And I understand that, but at this point, I think that this is the best we can do with the information we have. So, again, I'm going to go back to, we have a motion and second on the floor. Is there any further discussion?
Steph, I wasn't really thinking about the childcare thing on Thursday too. That is going to be a big concern for me. I, wanted and thinking of staff being able to be prepared and ready and sending things with kids. I'm just thinking, not personally, I'd be able to figure it out, but I feel like there's a lot of families who might not be able to figure that out that fast. So,
I understand that, and I understand that it may be a challenge for some families, but at this point, that is the motion and second on the floor, and we have to go with what we have. So I'm gonna ask at this time for a roll call vote, please.
Vega Benson Moreau,
Yes.
Michelle Jackson,
Yes.
Kate McKinney,
I would say no, keep the kids there Thursday, Friday.
Nathaniel Melton,
Yes.
Deb Olson,
Yes.
Marcia Shores,
Yes.
Paul Johnson.
Yes.
Okay. Motion is carried. All right.
Can I interject here? I am so proud of this board. This is the first time that I've ever seen every single board member participate in the discussion, and this was a good discussion.
This was a great discussion. Thank you, Paul. Okay, so we're moving on to item number 6, convene into closed session. And one moment, please. I don't have my stuff. I got it. Convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85, parent 1, parent C, to consider the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. Do I have a motion to convene into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute, I need a roll call vote, please.
Amy Benson Monroe.
Yes.
Michelle Johnson.
Yes.
Kate McKinney. Dana Milton.
Yes.
Jeff Olson.
Yes.
Marcia Shores.
Yes.
Paul Johnson.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we're going to reconvene into open session. Mr. Johnson, clerk, can you please read the action taken in the closed session, please?
In the closed session, we took 2 actions. The first was to adopt a district administrator performance evaluation system for the spring of 2021 for our superintendent, Dr. Aslan. And the second motion was to do the same for all of our administrators. And that was our 2 different actions we took.
Okay, and those are from now forward, not just for
Right,
20?
Starting the spring of 2021.
Okay, great, okay. All right. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I will so move.
I will second.
All in favor?
You didn't
Aye.
Do it.
Meeting adjourned.
Gosh.